Hey guys, welcome back. Today on the Untidy Artist, we are making a Cupid Fairy doll. As I was brainstorming different types of fairies that I could do for February, I thought a Cupid Fairy doll would be really fun, and I was talking to my amazingly creative daughter about it, and she said, you know what you should do, Mom? You should use little toothpicks to make some arrows with hearts on one end and feathers on the other, and make her a bow and arrow. And so, Sydney, this is for you. Thank you for the awesome suggestion, and let's grab some supplies and get started. The first thing you're going to need is obviously a flower. I found this really pretty bright pink flower at Michael's. It's part of their spring collection, and I thought it would just make a really fun skirt for our Cupid Fairy doll. The next thing you'll need is some embroidery floss. Now I'll be using metallic embroidery floss for this tutorial. It is a little bit trickier to work with, but I really wanted to add some bling to the Cupid Fairy. And then I found these little heart stickers that we'll be using for the arrows, and we'll be putting one in her hair. I have some feathers that we'll be putting on the end of each little arrow. I've got some iridescent glitter. You could also use pink for this if you'd like. And then I have 3 toothpicks and a piece of floral wire. This is a 20 gauge floral wire, and I'll put a link below to exactly where I get it. It's a little bit heavier than the floral wire I use to make my fairy dolls, and this worked perfectly for shaping our bow. Then I've got my glue gun set on low, some wire cutters, and a pair of sharp scissors. I have some gold metallic acrylic paint, and then I forgot to show this, but we'll be using pink 1/8 of an inch ribbon. And last but not least, my fairy doll. Now, if you're new to making fairies with me, you'll want to check out my basic fairy doll tutorial. In that step-by-step tutorial, I teach you how to take a wooden bead, a piece of floral wire, and some embroidery floss and twist it into this cute little doll. I also have a supplies video where I go into more detail to where I purchase all of the supplies to make my fairies. I've already given this gorgeous little doll a hairstyle. I gave her some curly hair, and you'll find a tutorial for how to give your fairy dolls curly hair also on my YouTube channel. All of these tutorials will be linked below in the comments. And so you can see I've already taken my embroidery floss I picked for her hair, and this is just a really pretty red and pink variegated thread that I thought would be really fun for our Cupid Fairy. You can style your doll's hair however you'd like, and usually I wait until the end of the tutorial to do that, but because she's got curly hair, her hair is already styled. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is create our bow. So go ahead and grab your floral wire, and you're going to measure from one end about 1.5 inches, and then we're going to curve the floral wire around to create what looks like a capital D. And I just spent some time shaping the curve of the bow, and once you reach the end of the 1.5 inch piece that you've measured, go ahead, overlap it, and then grab your wire cutters and cut it right at the end. And you can see this gives us the perfect shape for our bow. Then we're going to wrap it with our gold embroidery floss, but before that, I took my glue and I just used a little bit of glue to glue down the overlapping part of the bow. And once that glue has set, and that's just kind of to hold it in place while we're wrapping it, I'm going to take my embroidery floss, and one little trick I've figured out is if you put a tiny bit of glue on the end of your embroidery floss, it is a lot easier to work with because it doesn't start splaying out and coming unraveled as you're trying to wrap it around. So I just started right in the middle of the overlapped part of my bow, and I'm just going to wrap it around. Just like you do when you're making your fairy doll, we're just wrapping an even layer around the entire bow. And it may have been easier for me to cut off a big long piece of this embroidery floss, but I just decided to leave it attached to the entire pack and just loop it through the bow. And once you reach the end, go ahead, add a dab of glue, trim that off, and you have this very sparkly gold bow for your Cupid Fairy. I love how this turned out. I thought it was absolutely darling. Now we're going to make our arrows. So I'm going to grab my toothpicks, and I just got these at my grocery store, and I'm going to open up my gold acrylic paint and actually just dip my toothpick into the paint. It seemed easier than pouring some of it out because we're only using a tiny, tiny bit of this. You just want to put an even layer of the paint on each toothpick. And you don't really need to worry about getting it on both ends because we're going to be covering up both ends. So I actually just stuck them in this little piece of foam and I let them dry. And once they're completely dry, we're going to add our embellishments to our little arrows. So to make the point on the arrow, I thought it would be really cute to use the point of a heart. Once again, thank you to my lovely daughter for this idea. So I took one of my little heart stickers, I put some glue on it from my glue gun, and I just put it at the tip of one end of my toothpick. And then I grabbed another sticker, I added a tiny bit more glue, and I just sandwiched the toothpick in between the two stickers, which gave us our pointy end of our arrow. And you're going to do that with all 3 toothpicks. I chose to do different colors for each arrow. So you can see I'm just adding a little bit of glue, attaching it to that sticker, adding a tiny bit more glue, grabbing another sticker, and sandwiching that toothpick in between the 2 stickers. Pressing it together to make sure the glue sets. You're going to grab the feathers and we're going to make the other end of the arrow. So these are just little tiny feathers I got from Hobby Lobby, and I went through and I picked out the very smallest ones, and I picked out about 2 or 3. You kind of have to play around with them to find some that are all about the same size. And once I had a few of them placed together, I grabbed my glue gun, I put a little bit of glue at the very tip of my feather, and I'm going to put the toothpick right on the glue, and then I'm going to take more glue and another little piece of feather, and I'm going to sandwich the toothpick between the 2 layers of feathers. Trim off any excess of the feathers, and don't worry if it hangs down a little bit or if it doesn't look really pretty, because we're going to be covering up this end where the glue is with our gold embroidery floss. So then you can see here, I grab my glue gun, I put a little dab of glue, and I'm taking that gold embroidery floss and I'm just wrapping it around the end of where the feather overlaps onto the toothpick. And this just finished it off really pretty and gave it some bling at the end of our arrow. And I think these turned out so cute. I had a lot of fun making these, I'll be honest. And then when you're done wrapping that around, go ahead and trim off the excess. If for some reason your embroidery floss splays out a little bit, take the tip of your glue gun and you can kind of press that down to give you an even finish. And we have our bow and arrow, and I love how these turned out. Then go ahead, set those aside, grab your fairy doll, and we're going to dress her. So I'm going to give her some short sleeves and a pair of shorts, and I'm using this really pretty silvery metallic thread. I didn't want the focus to be so much on her clothes as the skirt and the bow and arrow, so I kind of went neutral with her top, and then I gave her a little pair of boots. And if you've never made fairies before and you need more help with dressing your fairy, check out the basic fairy doll tutorial. I go in more detail in that. Then I'm going to grab my flower and I'm going to pull it apart. And this flower was beautiful. I had tons of different layers of petals, and I actually ended up saving a bunch of these that I'll be using in a future fairy doll tutorial. And so pull them apart, and then I started just playing around with the different layers of petals and overlapping them in a way that I liked, so that when I held it up to my fairy doll, I liked the way it looked. And then once I had the petals layered together, I'm going to cut an X right in the middle of the petals. This will allow us to slide the petals up and around our fairy doll's waist. So you'll do that to all of your petals. And I actually only ended up using 4 layers of these flower petals. And once you have that part done, go ahead, start sliding them up and around her waist. And once you have them arranged the way that you like them, go ahead and grab your glue, and you're going to add tiny dabs of glue in between each layer, securing the skirt. And maybe make sure that you pay attention to how the petals overlap to give her a really pretty full skirt. And you'll do that in the front and in the back. Next step, we are going to grab some glue, and you could use Mod Podge for this part if you wanted. I'm just using my glue gun because it seemed easier. And I'm going to just do little bits of glue right up around her waist. We're going to add some glitter because we want to add some sparkle. And I liked that this iridescent glitter had the same sparkle that the embroidery floss had that we used for her top. And I actually added quite a bit of the glitter. I just kept going back through with my glue gun, adding little bits of glue here and there, and then sprinkling the glitter on it until I had the amount of sparkle and glitter that I wanted on the top of her dress. And this just added that extra bling for this fairy. Then go ahead, set her aside again, and I'm going to take some 1/8 inch ribbon, and I cut off a piece that was about 12 inches long, 12 or 14 inches long, and I wrapped the middle part of it. I folded the ribbon in half and wrapped the middle part of it around my 3 arrows. And then I tied that off in a double knot. And what we're going to do is wrap this underneath one of our fairy's arms and over her shoulder. So she is carrying her arrows with her. So you can see I situated the arrows at the back of my doll, and then I took one end of the ribbon, I pulled it underneath one of her arms and then over the top of the other, and I'm just going to tie that off in a double knot right on her shoulder, and then I'm going to finish it off with a little bow. And then I actually just took the bow and placed it over her other arm. If you wanted to glue it down, you could, but I liked that I could take it on and off. Then last but not least, we're going to add an embellishment to her hair. So I took one of those same little heart stickers. I took a piece of both of my embroidery floss, so the metallic and the gold. I cut off a piece that was about 6 inches, and I glued the middle of it right onto my heart, and then I took the ends of the embroidery floss and I looped it up and around to kind of follow that same heart shape. So you can see I looped it up and around, and then the ends are hanging down, and I did that on both sides. So you loop it towards the middle of your heart and gently tack that down, and then I trimmed off the ends. And I liked the ends hanging down. I thought it looked really pretty in her hair. And then I'm going to grab my doll, and you'll want to spend some time, if you've chosen to do the curly hairstyle, you'll want to take some time rearranging the curls. And then I just took a little bit of glue, put it on the back of my hair accessory, and put it in her hair just to the side, held that down until it set. And that's it, guys. You're all set. You have this very darling, fun, and whimsical Cupid Fairy doll. I really love the bow and arrow. I think it just added the perfect touch. I loved being able to use the gold embroidery floss on it. And once again, shout out to my awesome daughter for the brilliant idea of how to make those cute little heart arrows. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions, post those below. Be sure to check out some of my other tutorials on my YouTube channel. I have a lot of fairies as well as other DIY crafts. I've got some really fun things that I've posted for Valentine's Day. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, give it a thumbs up. If there are fairy dolls or crafts that you'd like to see, please post those in the comments below. If you decide to recreate the Cupid Fairy doll, I would love to see pictures of it. And you can post those on Instagram with the hashtag untidyartistfairydoll, or you can send them to me in a private message on Facebook. Thank you guys again for all of your support, all of your kind words. Please know how much I appreciate hearing from you, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.